Today, Arturia Audio has released two fantastic new products, the X8N and the X8 Out. These units give you the ability to add either 8 additional inputs or 8 additional outputs to your existing recording interface via ADAT. Arturia Audio is a relatively newcomer as far as long-term audio interface manufacturers come, but what they have come out with is some really fantastic products that clearly tell me that they're very in tune with the typical needs of the home project studio user like yourself and me. What makes these so special? Well, there's nobody that I'm aware of that's really quite done it like this at this particular price point. So let's talk about really some great uses for some particular units like this. As an example, if you need to add just 8 channels of in and that's all you need, maybe you don't need an additional 8 channels of out, you can do that. You can just buy the in. And on the opposite end of that, of course, you can buy the X8 Out if you just need 8 additional outputs. Most audio interfaces give you the ability to expand the I/O via ADAT, whether it's just one set of 8 in and 8 out or 2 sets of ADAT for 16 in and 8 out. The great thing about these units is you can add what you need and only what you need. If you needed to add 8 additional inputs to your existing recording interface, you would buy a single X8N. If you needed to add 16 additional inputs to your recording interface and you have 2 sets of ADATs, you can add 2 X8 inputs. That will give you an additional 16 inputs in addition to whatever the quantity of inputs that you have on your existing recording interface. The same holds true for your outputs. You may need more inputs than outputs, as an example. What this does is give you the ability to be able to expand as your needs grow. You can start out with 8 inputs as an example. Maybe you need just 8 more microphone preamps and you've got those via an external set of hardware units. Well, you can connect those to the X8N and now you've got 8 additional mic preamps in addition to the mic preamps on your existing recording interface. Same thing true for outputs if you want to get into surround sound. I'm not quite sure if these are Dolby Atmos approved yet. You'll need to do some homework on that to find out if you want to explore that route as well. But this will give you the additional outputs needed for that if it's applicable. But certainly, depending on what your needs are, you can expand as your needs grow. Maybe you only need 8 additional inputs, but 16 additional outputs as an example. Or the reverse, 16 inputs and an additional 8 outputs. This gives you the ability to flex as your needs grow up to the maximum allowable ADAT expansion of your recording interface. What I find very unique about this as an example is you can buy a 4-channel recording interface with 2 additional ADAT I/O on it, and then you can expand as your needs grow, therefore putting most of your money into the quality of a 4 in, 4 out as an example. If you've got an existing 8-channel interface, then you can expand up accordingly. Just depends on what your needs are. So the reason I've got a 500 series rack sitting here is this gives you the ability if you want to add additional hardware inserts to your existing recording system, this is a great way to do it. You can add an additional 8 I/O, and from this, you can add the additional expansion depending on how many particular slots you have in your 500 series or whether you're using 19-inch rack-mounted hardware. It really doesn't matter. This gives you the ability to expand as your needs expand. Maybe you start out with an additional 8 in and 8 out to be able to incorporate some analog hardware into your recording system. Well, then maybe later on you need to add additional microphone preamps, or maybe you need to add additional hardware pieces. You can simply buy the units that you need to expand up to the quantity of I/O that you have available via ADAT. There are also other manufacturers that add an additional 16 I/O, whether it be from other manufacturers like Motu or Ferrofish as an example, but you're stuck with having to add a total of 16 I/O, and maybe your needs will never be that much. Maybe you only need 8 additional inputs. Well, why do you need to add 16 I/O if you only need 8? Yes, it's there if you grow, but you could be spending more than you need, adding more additional inputs than, quite frankly, your needs really call for. This gives you the ability to add 8 in or 8 out at any given time in any configuration up to your maximum ADAT I/O available on your recording interface. Need more ADAT I/O and you've got a tower, a desktop tower, then you can add an additional ADAT card and continue to expand beyond that. There's so many options available here for you. Now, I can tell you, having recently reviewed the Arturia Audio 16 rig, I can tell you that the conversion is very good. Considering the price point, I think you get a lot for what you're paying for, and I have no doubt that these are the same. So I'm going to unbox these units and we're going to check them out. Now, if you want to see the full unboxing as best as I can kind of show it, well, I'll put that at the end of the video, but for right now, I'm going to skip fast forward. You know, there's a lot of manufacturers out there that make some really great recording interfaces for an affordable price, but typically to be able to get the quality of the conversion and everything, you have to have some limitations, and that typically comes in the form of I/O. To me, one big advantage of this, especially if you're kind of plotting your roadmap going forward, right? Maybe you don't have the need for the additional I/O today, but you want to understand your options. One of the things I really try to drive home on this channel is do your homework. Don't just go buy something because you see somebody like me show it on the internet. Do your own homework. Make sure you understand what your needs are today as well as the future. So what something like this gives you is the ability to be able to really invest more money and maybe get a higher quality 4-in and 4-out recording interface that covers many of your needs initially when you get started. But as you grow, you want to have options. That's one of the things that really a lot of people get torn about. Maybe I only need 4 I/O today, but I see my needs growing later, and I don't want to have to buy a unit today and then sell it and then get another one, but just because I need more I/O. I don't want to have to do that. And so I want to know what my options are later on. Depending on which way I want to go, maybe I want to be able to track a band as an example, and I want to record live drums. You know, I did a video in the past about can you record drums with an 8-channel interface? I think the idea of that flew over a lot of people's heads and didn't really quite think it through. And here's my answer, and here's the answer I will tell you after all these years. Can you record a drum set with just 8 channels? I don't think you can do it fairly, not in the traditional sense when you're miking individual drums. You're always going to need to make sacrifices along the way. You know, as an example, let's kind of talk about miking a drum set, just your standard drum set, right? You're going to need a mic on the top of the snare and a mic on the bottom. Do not sell yourself short there. They're both equally important to get a true and accurate snare sound. For kick drum, you're going to need one on the beater and one on the outer shell. Now, these are things if you're going to properly do it. So now we're up to 4 tracks. If we've got 3 toms, now we've got 1 on each tom. Now we're up to 7 tracks, leaving us 1 mic left to be able to cover overheads, ride, and hi-hat. We're not even talking room yet, right? And so a lot of people fail to understand that probably some of the greatest drum recordings you've heard, the room has played a critical role in that process. So that's why I don't think you can accurately and effectively get it done with 8 I/O. Can you do it with 12? Yes, you can. You can get it done with 12 and you can do a good job. But you need that additional I/O to be able to do that. Now you can expand upon that and take in an ambient mics and so many other things, but that's not necessary. It's a luxury that quite honestly, most recording people at home don't get a chance to do that. So if you're in a band, you know, this is a great option to expand an existing 4-channel interface. Maybe in your home studio, you can get by with 4 channels, no problem. You're doing everything great. You do a lot of maybe either synthesizers and everything via virtual instruments. Maybe your bass goes direct, but you're recording one at a time. You're not typically recording that many inputs. But now you take your recording interface along with these particular units, and now you take it to band practice when you want to record the entire band and you want to start with the drum kit and then come back and overdub other things later. You can do that via this. So you don't need an additional 8 I/O to do that. You're just doing mic inputs. So maybe you just get the X8N and you do that. Later on, when you get into mixing, if you want to have the ability to be able to incorporate analog hardware as an example, as you see here via my 500 series rack, whether it's that or, 19-inch rack, it really doesn't matter. but you want to be able to incorporate that, then you just add an 8 out to it. And so later on, even if you wanted to be able, let's say you want to be able to track drums through that compressor on the way in, you may say, well, Barry, do I need to add an additional 8 in and 8 out to be able to do that, or an additional, whatever to be able to do that? It could be so many possibilities there. No, you really don't. What you really need to do is just buy a patch bay. Later on, maybe you don't want to have to do all that patching and you want to have a ton of analog I/O added to it. Then you just buy an additional set of X8s and X8, X8 in and X8 out. Really gives you so much flexibility to do it in a way that's so much better than committing to just a typical 16 I/O, which is what most people have available today. Arturia Audio really understands the typical person at home. All right, so before we close out, basically, I'm going to do a little shameless plug for me. If you've been watching my channel, you know I'm a woodworker. I do lots of things with that. You can see this tabletop here as well as this one right here. Yes, I made these, and I'm very proud of them, and they look absolutely fantastic. This is a combination, kind of like a mini little river table kind of thing, as is this. Another thing I'm going to start doing here, as you can see, if you want to be able to have something you can hang up in your studio, I can inscribe whatever you want on here. I'm going to be doing one here pretty soon that says Studio Talk, and then designing a little mount for it to sit in so it can be set on top of a tabletop, or it could be hung up on the wall. And so that is really cool. Now, for the record, you can use it as a cutting board because that's originally what it was designed for. And you know what I did? I cut it in half. And I thought there'd be a cool thing to do with that. So I can put whatever you want on there. So if you have any needs for things like that, or any custom CNC projects or epoxy-based projects, feel free to reach out to me at barryjohns@artisanwoodshed.com. That's barryjohns@artisanwoodshed.com. It's a business. It's a separate business. My wife and I started up, and we do a lot of custom things for a lot of different people, and we can do them for you. Tell me what you think below, but until next time, hope every one of you have a great day, and make some music today. Bring some joy to this world. That is why we do this, right? So let's get it done. Thank you, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.